Warning, you only have 4 days left to back a cool Kickstarter.
Yeah, which is true almost all the time in the world of Kickstarters. But rather than giving your money to that potato salad fuck, you should give your money. I hate him so much.
This ad spot's going to run 15 minutes now, Gary.
I had to work that asshole in anyway. Somebody who is not an asshole, though, segue, is Pete Ellison, who you can find at www.heyitspete.com. He is running a Kickstarter to produce a series of shirts for the summer. And you can also just check out kind of the rest of his stuff there, because it is all great, super cute, super thick lines, and just kind of a big, soft, adorable aesthetic that is kind of retro and bold at the same time.
Yeah. This can be taken many different ways, but it looks like tag art, like graffiti kind of thing. I could see this being in a stencil. And calling these shirts for summer is very appropriate because they are quite colorful. In fact, if I were capable of wearing it, I would grab one of these bright blue ones.
Yeah, Cole can't wear colored clothing, but were that possible, you would get one of these shirts. They're really nice, and the stuff for the Kickstarter is really great. You know, we wanted him to make that, but in addition, just the rest of the stuff on the site is really cool. Mm-hmm. There are some other prizes too. You can get some postcards and stickers and pins and the like. And he does it all himself. He has his home studio. He does all the screen printing, and they're high quality shirts. Like, they feel good. It doesn't feel like a big plastic, patch on your just suffering from summer sweat chest from having this patch. So yeah, definitely check that out. We have super long Kickstarter URL, but if you just go to www.heyitspete.com or find him on Facebook or Twitter at Pete Has a Beard, you can find the relevant information there. You only have 4 days, so jump on it.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to a very strange Bonfireside Chat Appendix, Cursed Second Favorite.
Yeah, where we are reading your responses to the Shaded Woods. We call this very strange because we are recording this before the rest of the episode.
Yep, scheduling goofs.
Yeah. And
spoofs. But that's okay. And we're going to be informed by your wonderful thoughts. And you guys came out in force, which is great. So yeah, I'm pretty much ready to get started.
As am I. So, as always, we're going to begin with our follow-up and errata section.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and get us started with Josh, who says via contact. In the most recent appendix, you guys lamented saying sconce so much, but couldn't come up with another word. Pet entry to the rescue. Sconces are actually wall lighting, specifically. The things you light all over Drang Lake are braziers, containers of coal or other fuel, which can be situated on the ground or hung from the ceiling and are used for heat or light.
Or for frying food in a Dairy Queen.
Yeah, or for going to porn sites. That's a different thing. That doesn't help though, because then we would have just kept saying braziers and not having not had a synonym for that.
Torchiers, maybe.
Torchiers?
Yeah, torchiers. That is a thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Menorahs.
Yeah, those are very specific.
Yeah.
I'd never be prejudiced against somebody in their ethnic holidays with their Jewish braziers.
I'm just picturing yarmulkes.
Yeah, we like yarmulkes over your boobles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over your boobalas? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, boobala.
Wow. This is getting dangerously insensitive, so I'm going to so we would have said the same word because that is the only episode where that comes up. So it would have been all braziers all the time.
Also, before somebody sends us a note next time, I realize that it's yarmulke and not yarmulke. I just think it's funnier to say yarmulke.
Yeah.
So is there a word that has a bigger gulf between how it's spelled and how it's pronounced?
I mean, probably not. None comes to... You know what? Probably not.
It's pretty intense.
February.
Yeah.
If you say it weird. I guess any word if you say it weird.
That's true. Yeah, you can pronounce things however you like.
All the world is a stage. As such, we are reading a response from Paolo via the contact forum who says, "You joked about chests being dead mimics. The way to distinguish a mimic from a real chest in Dark Souls 2 is locks. Real chests are bare. Mimics have locks on the front. In Black Gulch, there's a wooden chest in a small cave sitting in a pool of oil, and that chest has a lock on it. Maybe this was a mimic who chose the worst possible hunting spot and really starved to death."
Yeah, poor guy.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know that. I didn't know that the locks were the distinguishing mark.
I think I read that and then continuously forgot it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting that sense where I've played through Dark Souls 2 enough now to where I just have my mimic sense on, but, like, I feel like I read that early on and then just never thought to check, and still, got mimicked a couple times.
Yeah. So we had what? Chain goes in, danger within, something like that?
Yeah, chain goes in, treasure within.
Chain goes out, better watch out.
Yeah.
See a lock, you'll get a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Lock is free. Treasure for me.
Yeah, there we go. We did it.
Yay. So thank you. Luxury Wall we're big fans of that guy. Definitely recommend checking out his Tumblr to see all the data mining possibilities inherent in the Souls universe. He says, regarding ranking up in the Brotherhood of Blood Covenant, Jeremy wrote in and mentioned that arena and invasions are counted separately. Though I haven't done testing on ranking up, I know others have, and the consensus seems to be that only the arena matches are counted. So it seems likely that invasions don't contribute at all towards ranking up. I agree with Jeremy's point, though. It can be frustrating to rank up in the Covenant, and it's part of a larger issue where the role of PvP in the game doesn't feel as carefully considered as it could have been. I never took notice of the aura on the Greatsword Phantom. That's pretty cool. Yeah. He's talking about the one right outside of the chariot.
Yeah, and alluding to the fact that Blood Bros, their aura upgrades as they go through the Covenant. Which is pretty cool. I wish that would happen with Sun Bros too, actually.
Oh yeah, I wish that happened in all the Covenants. Like if there was just a way to tell. It's interesting when you say like the PvP wasn't as considered, because there are ways in which it feels very considered. Like we were praising the Rap Bros. Like that's very imaginative and neat to me as a PvP concept. Yeah. But I think that maybe the straight up kind of arena fight stuff could have used a little bit more. Yeah. But really, I mean, how much does the ranking affect you unless you're just kind of trying to collect everything?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked at the rewards, but there's probably some sort of spell or gear that you get, for a particular build. But again, that kind of is in the same neighborhood as wanting to collect everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to dismiss that completely, but like the actual fighting seems to work. I've never wanted for a fight as a blood brother. I can always just go and get a fight with almost zero weight.
Yeah.
So in that way, it kind of works. But I understand the point as well.
Yeah. Jacob Overbo via Facebook says, "I've been listening to your show for a while and I've yet to hear about gaining humanity via soapstones. Whenever I am hollow or low on spells, I drop a small soapstone. After fulfilling your stone mission, you gain a full humanity and all spells. This is a huge boon when fighting my way to a boss fog door."
Yeah. I saw this on Facebook as well. And I think that we just haven't talked about it because, I mean, I can't speak for you necessarily, but like, one, I haven't done tons of PvP and co-op stuff. I've done some, but not, I'm kind of saving it, I guess. Yeah. And two, like I haven't needed to that much to like get the recharge.
Yeah.
I suppose I could do it for Whipfest, but then I have to wait around to get summoned. And, that requires editing and obnoxiousness. So getting my gear repaired would be useful, but not, get a little bit impractical.
Yeah. There's also the idea that, at least when I played through it, this wasn't a thing. When I was hurting for human effigies, this was just something that just happened randomly for a lot of people, and it was only introduced in a patch that it happened every time. And I've actually been doing a lot of co-op with my PC character build, getting ready for the DLC, and also hexing it up so I can finally beat the Dark Lurker. And so I'm trying to save my human effigies and I'll just park outside of the Lost Sinners place and give somebody some help, or etc. And that is a great way to get your skin back.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to fight Dark Lurker.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I just man, that was a wall. I just ran straight out of human effigies on my first guy because I made a lot of very bad choices.
Yeah, so. Well, it's the same thing with humanity in Dark Souls 1. Like, eventually they just become a non-issue because you just get better at the game. Yep. But it takes a little while. So thank you, Jacob. Ryan says via contact. Dark Fog was not a pyromancy in Dark Souls 1. It was a sorcery and found behind the really troublesome wall of corrupted Elysial citizens in the Chasm of the Abyss. Also, while not really a correction, the correlation I found between catalyst type when it comes to hexes is staff-based hexes are typically corruptions of sorceries, while chime-based hexes are corruptions of miracles. All the Dark Souls 1 dark sorceries cast from the staff in Dark Souls 2. Thematically, it could be argued that anything that deals directly with the manipulation of souls or seems particularly abhorrent to cast is from chimes. Life Drain Patch, Resonant Soul, and Profound Still all seem just a little bit off when compared to the staff-based hexes, which are generally dark versions of sorceries. Nothing to me seems particularly malevolent about the staff-based hexes, just that they are twisted versions of what a sorcery might be. They are generally punchier hexes, dealing directly with the corporeal and not interfering with something's innate essence. Chime hexes, when seen in in-universe context, seem as though they are created with malevolence in mind. Life Drain Patch sucks the life out of everything it touches, the caster and his allies included. Resonant Soul essentially takes the caster's own life force to cast and deals an appropriately larger amount of damage for the trouble. Darkstorm and Scraps of Life seem to be summoning dead souls, or maybe humanity itself, from the abyss to assault the opponent. Profound Still silences everything around you, the description implying that it does so by invading the target's mind and not just robbing their speech. Profound Still's description is even more interesting because it almost certainly references Havel. He despised magic and was, of course, a jealous and humiliated, ostracized cleric. It makes sense that he would create a spell like this to prevent all the magic around him, and in doing so, may have been the progenitor of dark miracles.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very well thought out. In fact, I got this and I was like, shit, yeah, this guy has my theory.
Yeah.
So
yeah, good.
Yeah. Great stuff. And I like the idea that hexes are not their own thing. It's all just a bunch of stuff that was outlawed, you know?
Yeah.
And like as such, that is why it's a convergence between these two things. It's the cast off and the forbidden and kind of the apocrypha of every different discipline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I guess when we said Dark Fog was a pyromancy in Dark Souls 1, we might have been because I think I was referencing, or what I meant to reference, I don't think I necessarily said this or you wouldn't have corrected me, but the kind of equivalent is more the Toxic Cloud and Poison Cloud in Dark Souls 1, and that's what I actually think I was referencing. Dark Fog as a spell, my horrible admission for somebody who loves Dark Diving is I haven't spent very much time with dark sorceries in Dark Souls 1 just because they put so much of the game between you and them. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
But yeah, awesome. That's great thinking.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the actual Shaded Woods responses, I'm going to do two in a row here because one of them is very short. Gustavo, our boatbound friend, writes in via the contact form and says, I'll keep it short this week. Fuck Shaded Woods. Fuck Shaded Ruins. And if I see that Scorpioness Najka again, Najka again, it'll be too soon. And that actually starts off, I think this might be one of the most divisive areas we've had. Which is weird because it seems kind of like an unequivocal win. I mean, an equivocal win. Unequivocal is a little bit strong.
I think there's a lot to like about this area.
Yeah.
Even I look forward to talking about it with you when we actually do the episode.
This is weird. Yeah. But I figured we start off with that little salvo of F-bombs. But continuing with your friend and mine, Dennis Furia, he writes in via the contact form and says, fun fact, if you carry a torch into the foggy area, it will cause the invisible enemies to cast shadows when they're nearby. This is an awesome idea. But sadly, it seems to be another place where From bailed on the torch as a meaningful part of the game. The shadows don't show up until enemies are right on top of you. Maybe that's different on PC? And you can easily see them from further away by just holding still, rendering the torch/shadow mechanic a little more than a curiosity. Why does everyone in this area have the active camo from Halo?
This is all stuff that I would have talked about in the episode, so it is weird, but it is better on PC. So, like, using a torch and the shade, like, they're easier to see in PC in general, but if you use the torch, they're even easier, and the shadows are easier to see.
Yeah, that crispness, it really does account for a lot. I'm having a great time playing it on PC, and I'm not normally a person who fixates on graphical crispness or high frame rate.
Me either, but it makes a huge difference in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, your point, like, it could have had more dramatic shadows if the lighting system had been more intact. But like, this didn't seem like a casualty of that. the light still casts shadows appropriately. What seems to have been more of a lighting casualty is upping the ambient lighting level in general.
Yeah.
In most areas, and this, I imagine was fairly the same before and after that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more about resolution and just being able to see crisply.
Yeah.
That's causing that.
Yep.
Chad says, thank you, Dennis. Chad says, via contact, Scorpion Nest Najka was one of those bosses that really annoyed the hell out of me. Rolling doesn't do much to alleviate her spellcast, so with much trial and error, I learned a great way to avoid them is actually to sprint to the side. If you do that, the spells barely miss grazing your back. On a separate note, I have had a lot of trouble understanding the progression of areas in a way of lore significance. Any idea why a place like this would lead to the Doors of Pharos?
That's really bizarre. I thought about this, on the way, just because that sequencing is always so important. And like to the last one, if the Doors of Pharos didn't seem so much older than the catastrophe at Seldora, I would say that they are there to protect everything else from the spiders. Like just the idea that you have kind of this lock and key kind of system. But as it stands, Doors of Pharos just kind of seems like Moria,
Yeah, it could be, and this is where it's the Doors of Pharos, but it's also seems like the homeland of the Gurm. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating because Seldora and the Shaded Woods makes tons of sense next to each other. There's just this interstitial step, which I don't know if that's spacey wastiness. Like if you're literally teleporting to another area, that's unsatisfying and nobody likes that. But there is evidence for things being kind of zip-zapped around in Dark Souls 2. But other than that, I can't really come up with a connection.
Yeah.
So,
the idea that Seldora is a mine and the Gurm are the dwarven people, right? Just the idea that they were set up there. I don't know. It just let's talk about it in the episode proper because
they're very different mines.
Yeah,
like it's very different like ways that a mine can look like.
Yeah,
right next to each other. It's very strange. Like it doesn't make very much sense to me, and that's a little bit frustrating to me.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. Let's see here. Kenny, via contact, says, the Shaded Woods, though extremely creepy to my fear of fog, yeah, I know it's strange, is one of my favorite areas due to its inner branching paths and color contrast to the Huntsman's Copse. The false freedom I felt at first was overwhelming until I realized I couldn't pass through the Shine of Winter yet, or that the King's Ring door to the north was closed. So I strolled off into the fog. This is where, sadly, my Xbox died on me, so I replaced it with a PS3, eventually getting to the Shaded Woods on my PS3 playthrough and going on to finally beat the game. But this place will always hold a place in my heart as the creepy, foggy, Xbox-killing Marsh of Despair.
Mm-hmm.
God. That, you always you have a special place in your heart for when your Xbox 360 dies.
Haven't had it happen yet. Probably because I've only turned it on like 70 times in its lifespan.
Yeah. Boy, that it just every little hitch in the game after that, in any game really, will make you just cross your fingers and wait. It is very sad. Good.
Unfortunate. But yeah, thank you, Kenny. CF Radical Tiger Lord says via contact, the Shaded Woods is one of the best pieces of survival horror in a video game. Although throughout Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 thus far, it's been ball-breakingly hard, you've always at least been able to rely on locking on and hiding behind a huge stability shield. Even in pitch darkness, Tomb of the Giants and the Gutter, this was still a perfectly viable defense strategy. But in the Shaded Woods, you walk into a bright fog in an area of unknown vastness ahead of you, shield up, and as soon as the fog is fully closed around you, get backstabbed to death by an unseen enemy. The moans of the trees, the peering into the mist to look for just visible enemies, swinging wildly at the air, jumping at the shadows of your fellow adventurers battling through the fog in their own worlds. The air of menace was so palpable that after 3 runs at it, my controller was too sweaty to hold, so I left and went to party with the Baneful Queen instead. No party like that kind of party.
No. Because that party, you get poisoned.
Indeed. I hope that when we called for responses for this, people didn't think we were just talking about the Shaded Woods and not the ruins as well.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be if that's true. If anyone is listening to this and they, haven't, didn't consider responding to the area with all the Rostalions and have things to say about Rostalions, let us know.
Well, there's plenty about the ruin section a little bit later. Okay. Yeah. So, Yeah, and also, I guess when I called for that, I didn't draw a distinction between the two of them. It's all one big.
I wouldn't have either.
shaded.
I think the whole thing is just called the Shaded Ruins. For that. But it has a kind of real distinct areas.
Yeah.
So
calling this out as survival horror is pretty interesting. I definitely agree that it's that it's spooky. It's weird because this area does de-emphasize combat to a certain extent, right? Like fighting back is totally. You can do it, but it's not the best option that you have. And kind of the idea that you can attack these groany Pocahontas tree hag things to distract them, as you go around and get what you need, does place brain over brawn to this in a certain extent. So yeah, I could definitely see applying a little bit of that to it.
Yeah, I agree. Like I wouldn't call it one of the most survival horror areas in any game. It's probably one of the most survival horror areas in a Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
I love this area. First, I always thought that there would be more to it, and then when you kind of go through and despawn all of the ghost and explore it at your leisure, like it is just meant to be a big disorienting maze. Like it actually kind of reminds me of the kind of like a Lost Woods situation from a Zelda game, almost, just because of the fog and the kind of losing your place.
Yeah, I really quickly happened upon the heuristic of just running around the edges.
Oh yeah,
and then just after I was confident that I cleared everybody, I went in and checked it out. And you're right, it is pretty scant in the middle.
Yeah, and there's stuff to find, but it's hard to find and worth it too. Like you get really great items, but
yeah. I think it's pretty cool because and I'll probably say this in the main episode too, but it goes to show that both extreme light and extreme dark are bad for you. Like, just because there's light here doesn't mean you're in the clear. And especially the contrast between going from the gutter straight to here. There is something in that juxtaposition.
Yeah, which we chose to do. Yeah. Like you don't have to do that. The game didn't put those next to each other, but it was a good choice on our part.
Yeah,
good job, us.
Yay, good job, us. 4 months ago. Let's see here. Moving on here to Luke via the contact form. The shaded section of Dark Souls 2 was a standout for me during my first playthrough, primarily because it seemed like something from a different game entirely. Though the bountiful bonfires arguably do this for the whole game, the strict vignette-like structure set by the linear path and clear A, B, C branches in the shaded woods made it the most manageable Souls level in memory. Then came the mercifully short fog section, and the area flipped entirely. For me, the Shaded Ruins was both the most convoluted and challenging area in this section of the game. Those Thundercat wannabes were almost unbeatable for my level and my build at the time. I could barely damage them, and they took me down in a few quick hits. This kind of stat-based difficulty is not something that I associate with the Souls games, and so they stood out to me. Their toughness was only exacerbated by the really weird layout of the level. It's never clear what direction you're supposed to be going in, as forward leads to a cliff face and exploring opens up a number of initially promising but ultimately baffling hidden areas. Hopefully you guys have some stunning hypothesis about the lore here, but for me it's mostly padding. More cast-off creatures created by the Science Brothers, like everything else, though I've since developed a meta-theory about which satisfies me, but I've ranted enough for one day. I'm not sure if these areas feel unfinished or a rush to completion, but they definitely never felt of a piece with the larger picture, or even with themselves. They were just a string of pieces stuck together thoughtlessly, which stands out against the usually holistic and macro-scale level design of the series. I didn't hate these levels. It was worse than that. I forgot about them entirely, bar that lingering sense of bafflement.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like there are things about what you're saying that I do agree with. Like it is segmented in a way that is unusual. Mm-hmm. But I think it's one of those just matter of taste things where a lot of the things that you're seeing as strictly negatives, I kind of thought were kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Like the layout of this place, once you actually leave the ruins and kind of have all these different ways to go, with these little corners and crannies and stuff that have stuff hidden in them, I really liked. Mm-hmm. I was never going to not explore the game. So, I was going to find the Scorpioness path. Mm-hmm. But I ended up really liking that. And the lions are hard, but I wonder if you're playing a caster, because they're impossible for fucking casters. Like you don't do, the strongest spells in the game do almost nothing to them. Yeah. But even a caster, if you switch to like a dagger, you'll do okay. Like they're super vulnerable to backstabs and riposte and stuff. So that's kind of what I think it's trying to teach you.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah. Those guys are the biggest stat wall I found since like 2.1, whatever it is, with all those enemies just completely baffling. And that serves a similar purpose too, teaching you to vary up your, the types of damage that you're doing. Right.
Right. I mean, at least that's how I read it.
Yeah.
And obviously, like everything in Dark Souls, if you want to, you can get past, you don't have to fight anything.
Right.
Like you can get past them all too. Like I'm not suggesting that as a way to play, but like if you are playing, I'm going to do a run through where I only cast spells at some point, and this area will be very little explored.
Yeah.
Just because of that.
Yeah. I wonder if the aimlessness of this area wouldn't be so pronounced if there weren't places that you had to use a regular branch of yore to get through. Because there are some places where, I see those, and those have always been relevant and worth doing, and all of a sudden you have these, 5 or 6 statues. It's more like 3 or 4, I understand. But any one of those, could seem like the way to go. And if you're using up your branch of yore and the one that gets you to Vengarl, it's like, well, okay, but I could have gotten there the other way. I wonder if because there's a cost associated with it, if that's what's sticking its up.
Do you mean the one that gets you to Ornifex?
No. I'm talking about the one that's down through Tark's little hidey house.
Oh, that's the one that gets you to Vengarl. Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never gone to Vengarl from there.
Yeah, it's just it's just a weird little circuitous. It doesn't give you that much of a benefit. Yeah, honestly, it's just a cliff that overlooks Vengarl's little grotto.
Yeah, there's a parallel there with the Pharos Lockstones too, where initially seem every one of them is important, and then eventually they kind of devalue them in the same place too, because we're coming up on the Doors of Pharos, where that's the predominant theme is Lockstones are worthless. Not quite, but similar to that. Yeah, I don't know. Like it did, again, just kind of didn't bug me that much. The lions also are not science cast-offs. That's its own race of some kind, according to their equipment. Like we don't know very much about them, but they are not experiments.
No.
So, but they, the giant basilisk, super experiment.
Yeah.
Which come on, you liked that at least.
Yeah, please. If you're gonna take anything away from this.
Yeah. At the very least, you liked looking at the gigantic basilisk. Jeff says via contact, when I first saw the foggy area, I said, not today, Dark Souls. Now is a good time to point out that I had gone straight from the Forest of Fallen Giants to the Lost Bastille to the Shaded Woods. I found the Flexile Sentry easy. Thinking it was surely impossible that the game really expected me to walk into that fog without some ring or spell or something to increase my visibility, I explored a couple of other spokes. After beating the Rotten, I still had nothing to dispel the fog. So I finally decide it's time and I go into the forest. My Dark Souls experience tells me to keep my shield up and my eyes peeled. Needless to say, when something hits me, I spaz out and run hugging the right wall. I find a chest by the cliff and quickly open it, and to be honest, still hoping the item would be something that would make this unfair bullshit go away. I run along the skinny path up to the next chest, and that's when I get backstabbed and die. In short, I felt quite justified in avoiding it.
Yeah. That's weird. You get the old sun ring in that one chest here, and that does seem like something that would make the fog go away.
It almost
just
seems
by
like
name.
it could.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I quantify this as unfair or call it.
No, it
unfair.
definitely didn't. Yeah, it didn't feel like unfair or bullshit to me.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's so weird to record this without having actually talked about things and come to a consensus.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird.
Yeah.
But I like this area. It's not it's not a favorite of mine. Like it's not in my top 3 in the game, but I really like it. So
So Josh Redding via Facebook says, so I came here before I found No Man's Wharf, which means that I fought a Flexile Sentry before it was cool to do so.
Oh.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway from these two zones is the audio. From the whisper of the trees in the misty forest to the horrifying chucklehead curse pots, the audio is really the star of these two areas. This is further borne out in the form of Man-Scorpion Tark and the Ring of Whispers. I must admit, Tark and the accompanying boss came off as kind of weak design. It is basically a less creepy version of Quelaag and the Fair Lady. Take a human upper body, melt it into a gross creature lower body, and then succeed. I don't know. I didn't say that sentence right, but I'll continue. However, Tark was saved by the lore implications he provides in regards to Seath and the cyclical nature of the world. Oh, And anyone who says they didn't have their blood turn cold and hearts start racing at the sight of that giant basilisk after the bonfire is a total liar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking, is this a boss without a fog door?
Like, there's so many, like, I like how this picks up on, like, even if in general, like, some of the stuff felt a little janky to people, there's so many, like, just kind of neat things, like, the forest whispering, that's so good, and when you hit the tree and it, does that moan.
Yeah, house.
Or, the curse bots. Like, it's potential this is not the first time you run into curse bots, depending on what path you took, but I want to say that it was mine, and it's an entire forest of them.
Yep.
And they're so unsettling and great.
Yeah.
Like,
and they're
so
used
creepy.
in such strategic ways, like...
Yeah.
Like,
their
placement is demonic.
I feel like it's a really well-designed level in that respect. Like, I don't, in a different way maybe than is typical for Dark Souls, where, like, the design comes from interconnectedness and everything. Like, this is more, like, similar to the spinning statues, where, like, they kind of cover each other. We're talking about that. And we'll talk about that at length in the Shrine of Amana.
Yeah.
But, Dark Souls 2 does a good job of, like, making things, like, designing things in that respect.
Yeah.
Like, making things challenging in a way that requires a certain kind of approach.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the Shrine of Amana in that it definitely feels of its own thing. Like, this feels like it belongs in a sequel to that game I played 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It feels sequel-y in that it takes something that we're pretty familiar with and, messes with it in a more kind of profound way than you would see in, like, going from Blighttown to the gutter. Like, this is of its own device, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think, in combination with, a moody place that does interesting things, sign me up.
Yeah.
Makes this feel really successful to me.
Yeah, it literally laughs at you.
Yep.
Like, the whole time you're there. Like, it's giggling at you, creepily. Like, it is a horror kind of area.
Yeah.
Which makes sense for, the proximity to Curse and the proximity to Saldora, which is a real nightmare town. So Thomas Maglio says, via contact, this is probably my favorite area in Dark Souls 2. I explored the mist-covered woods, terrified the whole way through. I kept expecting to find some quick-moving, giant creature prowling after me, waiting for me to stumble across it when it was too late to defend myself. Instead, I found something way worse. A scattered battalion of ghosts that I could hardly see. Scattered battalion, that's a nice...
Yeah.
That's a
of ghosts.
Yeah, that's great.
You left the good part off of that.
Yeah, no, there's a nice poetry to that. A scattered battalion of ghosts that I could hardly see, who backstabbed me to death more times than I'd like to admit. Since then, I've had a wonderful time with would-be invaders in this area. Seed of a tree of giants, silver talisman, and sit back and watch the carnage. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Vengarl is one of my favorite NPCs in the game. He gives you a rock and helmet, and it's just so funny to have this pensive head, once belonging to a beastly warrior, be just chipper as can be to you, give you a sweet gesture, and then send you on your way. Shaded Ruins is great. I literally laughed out loud when I saw the giant basilisk. It was my first time encountering my old Dark Souls 1 friends, and just as I was beginning to think they'd gone extinct in Drenglake, I turn a corner and find Curse Frogzilla. Tark didn't do much for me, but I appreciated the name drop and his rather extreme measures of settling domestic disputes. I totally missed Ornifex on my first playthrough, but since finding her, she's become one of my favorite merchants, especially her bit in a later area where she basically calls you out for being racist against bird people. I wonder what she was doing locked up, and if her inclusion is about as close a connection to Velka in this game as we're going to get. Scorpina, the Power Rangers villain, was a tough fight on my first playthrough, but has become trivial now that I know the stone floor trick. I appreciate her tails being cuttable, but it's too bad that we didn't get a drop double scorpion tails whip for Whip Fest. For example, crack. And kind of stumbled on the last sentence, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I miss tail weapons too.
Yeah. You're right. I guess I didn't notice it until just now. Or, make note of it. I didn't grieve it until just now.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I like all those things. I like Vengarl. I like the giant basilisk.
Yeah.
I like Tark. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the boss fight is okay. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but it's not bad.
Like, this is a whole spoke of weirdly underwhelming or just kind of like a couple degrees off boss fights between this guy and Freya and also what is it, the congregation?
And Vanguard the Royal Rat. Or Authority the Royal Rat.
Yeah.
Who comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think that is more, the congregation is definitely of this ilk.
Yeah.
I think Freya's a little bit stronger as a boss fight out of the four that we're talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. I'm going to round us out with Chase Greenlee. via contact, who says, Vengarl is my favorite NPC in Dark Souls 2. After wandering through the unsettling fog of the woods, I was happy to find such a chill character amongst the Invisinites and spooky, screaming trees. His backstory is straightforward, as best I can tell, and his gear may be my favorite set in the game. Yeah. I'm trying to, like, his helmet makes him look like a kickboxer. It's like,
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Or like an American Gladiator.
Yeah, I suppose that's the more accurate version of it. Yeah. It's crazy. And I still want to dig in once we get to Saldora about how his body ends up where it is.
That's a big question for me too.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating just because, I mean, he's a mercenary, so he can be anywhere really, but that's not super satisfying.
Right.
So, I mean, that might be something that is answered in the Saldora based DLC.
Yeah, but we won't find out till September.
Yeah. But that could something that could be answered with this, as well. I guess the Doors of Pharos thing. Oh, yeah. And again, we're really banking a lot on that DLC. And I should clarify, because we said that a couple times in the last episode. Like, if the DLC does not answer those things, it's not going to ruin the game for me. It would just be nice to get a little bit more connective tissue, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it seems almost engineered to give a deeper dive into some of those things. I'm more worried about them being scant in terms of size of the area. Like they set me up with Artorias of the Abyss to really go whole hog on this stuff. So I was thinking about that too, and like what would be the minimum kind of area I would be satisfied with. Like in an area like this, like the shaded ruins, shaded woods, and then the shaded forest and a boss. Like, I could handle that. Maybe a little bit bigger than that, like over the 3. Yeah.
Not over the 3, like that's the entire thing, but each one is about that big, which would end up being a little bit bigger than Artorias of the Abyss, because Artorias of the Abyss, the real meat of that is the Elysial. The Abyss is actually not that big, and the woods leading up to the Royal Woods is bullshit. So that's kind of got like one meaty area. Yeah. So like one meaty area and one good boss per would do me, from a gameplay perspective, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for writing in about that. Again, this is kind of a similar situation where there were some responses that didn't get in. I am saving those, and we're going to find something to do with those a little bit later on.
Depending on how much we have to kindle the bonfire.
That is exactly the thing I was going to talk with you about off air. So, we will somehow stretch. I mean, obviously, we won't take a break. We'll figure something out. Yeah. Between this and Bloodborne, but it sounds like we just got a huge medical bill. We're gonna make it work.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we wait and see. So yeah. Do we want to wrap it up?
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Yeah. So thank you again to Joseph for being on the show, for being on the first half. Really appreciate that. And if you have comments about the next area we're talking about, which is going to be the Doors of Pharos and Saldora, you can contact us at duckfeed.tv/contact or on our Facebook. Facebook.com/duckfeed.tv.
For sure.
/bonfireside chat.
If you would,
is what I actually meant.
Yeah. Well, /duckfeed.tv does go to a place too. So,
I didn't know that Duckfeed.tv had its own Facebook.
Yeah, I put one up at the Patreon, which you can go to at patreon.com/DuckFeedTV. If you want to kick us a couple bucks a month, get some cool perks. We're coming up pretty quick on the next live stream for anybody who donates at the $5 or above level. But anything you can give helps.
Yeah, it is. It's super appreciated.
Yeah. Additionally, if you would like to do us a huge favor, you can tell a friend. If you are evangelizing for Dark Souls, especially as we're coming into the DLC time, also say, hey, there's this podcast that's a little companion piece to it. Check it out.
Yeah. We would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You can rate and review us on iTunes, which is always appreciated. Find us on those social media outlets like Facebook and stuff. There's lively discussion going on there. Yeah. You can go to Duckfeed TV and check out our other shows. Yeah. So if you like us talking about Dark Souls, there's a good chance you'll like us talking about other stuff.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's about it. So we're going to do some deleted scenes and then be on our way.
Umbasa. I recently had opportunity to scratch a scratcher And I was trying to think of what the minimum amount of money that would actually like produce an emotional response in me would be, and it's kind of surprisingly high. Like it just like, like, oh, like enough to get dinner for me and Elizabeth or something like that. Maybe need to be like $50.
Yeah, $50 would be where I would drive it at.
Yeah, be like, oh, cool, $50.
Yeah,
but still not enough to make the save the week.
Yeah, yeah. My initial answer was going to be 20, but like that's right around my threshold for when I don't think about buying something.
Yeah,
and so it's probably closer to 10 for that, but 20 isn't. Yeah, 50. I think 50 is what it is.
Yeah,
which
I'd
is
be excited about $50.
Yeah,
not extremely, but like mildly, like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
I
remember. I want to say it was my scratch off card, but my dad bought it, and it was just he let us scratch it because he bought scratchers. Got $150, and we went to a summer fun day at a water slide place that is now an abandoned, overgrown, kind of scary, spooky place.
Love that shit.
Yeah, it's built into the side of a hill.
That stuff's great. I love abandoned spaces.
Okay, cool. He says fine with me. I'll be home right before 8:30.
Okay.
So
thanks, man. Sorry about all this rigmarole.
Yeah.
And we would definitely appreciate swinging on back.
Yeah, and thank you for being flexible too.
Yeah.
Yep. So he says he'll be on his motorcycle, so it won't be too responsive. But I mean, 8:30 will be fine. That
Yeah, no, 8:30 is fine. We don't want to interrupt your motorcycling.
Yeah, for sure. 'Cause that sounds rad.
Yeah, like the we Skyping on a motorcycle sounds like probably the most dangerous and noisy thing. Yeah. So remember how good the mic is.
Yeah.
This will cheer you up. Did you know that H.R. Giger, noted maniac, spent years and years and years trying to make a movie about a man in love with a sentient limb?
No, I did not. Are you reading a biography? Or?
I know somebody just popped up in a thing. And there's all these sketches and stuff too. I'll send it to you so you can put it in show notes. But pretty amazing.
Okay.
Or I'll just put it in the show notes rather.
Yeah.
H.R. Giger limb.
Is that the name, Limb?
No. It's the mystery of San Gotardo.
Oh, of course, it'd be inscrutable.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at least 1994 is when he first revealed that he had written the screenplay, but it began with his first ever sketch in 1963. It is about a man and his love for a freak of nature, Armbienda, which is really a sentient limb combining an arm and a leg. It's the further development of a recurring image in my work in the last 30 years. The concept stems from a 1963 creation called The Beggar, Geiger's very first sketch, featuring a leg and an arm holding a hat. Geiger has filled several sketchbooks with these stories of reduced beings. The story concerns a race of biomechanoids created by a military organization. The premise? Your arms and legs are slaves that do your bidding, but what if they had a mind of your own and were set free? Ink drawings depict the disembodied parts attacking their creator, Geiger's self-portrait, in the San Gotardo border tunnel, which links Switzerland and Italy. To ensure that his vision remains intact, Geiger hopes to retain creative control as producer on the film and not be forced to rely on CGI. Weirdo.
Yeah.
Biomechanoids.
That is such like a early 70s sci-fi.
Yeah. I don't think you listen to Super Ego, but like their H.R. Giger is amazing. Huh. And when he died, they had a tweet where it's like, hopefully he's getting his brimstone boy jobs in bioorganic heaven hell. It's very funny to me. I get that phrase stuck in my head all the time.
Bioorganic heaven hell or brimstone boy jobs?
Both. Getting your brimstone boy jobs in bioorganic heaven hell. He was on a podcast Andy Daly did too, and he kept rating things a number of how many pulsating mood sacs they were. Like 4 out of 5 pulsating mood sacs. And he's talking about Legoland, and the only reason why it lost a mood sac is because all the bricks should be gray. You sound great. Do you go by Joseph, Joe, Jay?
Jay, preferably.
Jay? You got it.
My mother calls me Joseph, but I still respond to that every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I'll only do that if I'm mad at you during the podcast.
Right. Also, can we have your middle name?
Yeah.
Yes, it is Joseph Ryan,
Yeah,
and that's
so
what my mom uses.
if there's some kind of lore conjecture I don't like. Joseph Ryan, are you sure you think these lion Rastafarians are creations of Duke Saldora?
Now I feel like there's a power imbalance. I'm Cole Andrew.
Yeah. And I wish I was one of those cool people that doesn't have a middle name, so when they have to sign in with their initials, they're X's.
Ooh, that would be cool.